Money will go way faster than it comes.
Dude, if you have it, it goes. You start to get fooled into thinking that, oh yeah, we're a big time business. And it wasn't this year. It wasn't the last year. It was the year before where we got the original capital in, and it's like, damn, like we've got millions of dollars in investment. We've got all these people. We're doing all this cool shit. I'm a big time businessman. And then you just get this shit kicked out of you. And now it's like, I'm not shit. I'm nothing.
So if you can talk about it, I'm just curious because I know the way this company is set up, I know a lot of that capital is probably not going into hard assets.
Almost none of it.
So it's probably extremely hard to raise capital if it's not going into asset. Or am I wrong?
It's hard to raise capital from an industry that only invests in assets.
Yeah.
So contractors.
That was my first thing my mind went to. I was like, well, you're not buying any equipment.
Yeah.
You know, not saying that would be a good thing to invest in. It's just like, that's where my mind goes. I was like, what assets would I be putting my money in? Physical assets.
Yeah. And it's there are no assets. It's human capital, which I believe is by far the best investment, which I believe you can create the most value from, but it's not what the construction industry is comfortable with. So I'm glad we've raised from the industry. I'm so relieved we've raised our first 2 rounds from the industry, because you're going to give up the most control in the first 2 rounds. And we've given up that control to people that understand the problem we're facing, that care about the problem we're facing, and that care about what we're doing, care about the industry we're serving. If it were VCs in the first few rounds, they don't care. They don't. Their first objective is to create a return on investment. Now, I want to create a return on investment for everybody that's invested in our company, of course. But you also get a little grace along with that, which I think is necessary to actually innovate and create something substantial. So yeah, it's all been human capital. But the cool thing about software is, construction company, you're selling for like 5 times EBITDA, and a lot of construction companies are not all that profitable. So, and a lot of construction companies aren't even built to sell. They're positioned around one individual.
Most
hub and spoke.
Yeah, most construction companies are sold based on their
balance sheet. Yeah, just about what's the balance sheet worth, and then what's your backlog? You can sell backlog, and then labor force.
Yeah,
that's the value of a construction company.
Yeah,
but software, since it's recurring, it's potentially way more valuable. Way more valuable. Why? I can't explain it, but that's just how the market works. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can kind of explain it. You know, if you want to go double your customer base, for example, you're going to have to go buy, say you're running 1 grinder and X amount of machines to serve that grinder.
Yep.
I want to go double. Well, now you need to go buy another grinder, more machines, hire all of those people.
Yep.
Our training platform, another customer comes on. The video's already created. The platform's already created. Exactly. I copy it. I paste it. We're dealing in bits, the virtual world. So there isn't all this physical infrastructure I need to go create to go service that other customer. Now, I do need to add headcount. I do need to add server space. And as we grow, but it's not even close to what you have to do as a physical business.
Way more work.
Yeah, it's just different. It's different. So it's not that anyone's like, a lot of days I wish I was a contractor. And then the days I look out the window and it's pouring and it's a mud hole next door, I'm like, I'm glad I'm not a contractor.
Well, the only reason why I'm a contractor is because it was what I knew to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there are way smarter things to invest your time in, but I do really enjoy the industry, and I enjoy business. But it is an extremely hard field to be in.
But see this, but I think the smartest thing to invest your time in is into
things you love.
Yeah, into becoming who you can be.
Yeah.
And some paths are more lucrative than others, but that's first and foremost. And if you focus on that, it's the money will come eventually.
Yep.
No matter what path you go down, in theory, unless you choose not to, donate all the money like Mother Teresa, but she still made a ton of money. So yeah, I think the smart route is to just get off your ass and get on the path, whatever that is for you, which you've done.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's just murdering trees.
Exactly. And I don't know how I got into that. It was just, honestly, I knew how to do it. I grew up on a farm. I knew I didn't physically want to do it, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn this into a business.
Yeah.
And scale it.
So we last spoke at my kitchen table when we were doing the podcast at my house when I first moved to Nashville. The office didn't exist yet.
Yep.
So that was nearly 2 years ago now.
Yep.
How old are you when you started?
I was 20.
You're 20. So you got started pretty early. How old are you now?
27.
We're same age.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been going for 7 years.
Yeah.
So people will look at you like, what do you know? But you've been around it for a while and you grew up before that. Before that.
Yeah. So I didn't operate an excavator until I was 19.
Really?
Yeah. I mowed yards. I worked in tobacco patches.
Nice.
You know, I knew how to drive a tractor or whatever. It just it was just natural. But I had an interest in doing things and not, being limited, I guess. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to find me a niche in these higher populated areas and bring a service.
Yeah.
And it just so happened to be that all these grading contractors and developers were needing someone reliable to clear their property because there's a whole new market in metropolitan areas where you have to process the wood in different ways. You can't just knock it over and burn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
even though we still perform some of that, it was just a niche, and I just saw opportunity and I seized it. So
there's like if you become a grading contractor in Middle Tennessee, there's a lot of grading contractors in Middle Tennessee at all levels.
Yeah.
At all levels. And the competition is fiercest at the bottom. You have more people at the bottom than you do at the top because of scale. But for whatever reason, the grading contractors don't like to touch clearing.
Well, you can lose a lot of money quick if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're speaking to a veteran there.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you speaking from experience?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that?
So, okay, I'll put it this way. In our area, almost everyone knows, out east coast, down in the Carolinas, Georgia, those guys really know how to do our scope of work. So
yeah, well, and let's explain the geography. So we're in Middle Tennessee, which is just a rock pile.
Yes.
And then you peel off going east and hit the Smokies.
Yep.
Which is obviously a big mountain range, the Appalachian mountain range, all the way up the coast. And then you go over that, and now you get into kind of the low country, into little North Carolina, especially South Carolina, Georgia, some of Florida, Mississippi. And that is all pine and is the cheapest wood in the world.
Yes.
So everything is about logging in that area.
Yes.
But up here, we don't have the climate for that.
So I'm not sure on the climate. I just know that it hasn't been maintained very well over time. So clearing methods in Central Tennessee are completely different than somewhere in South Georgia or South Carolina. Being as how I founded this company in Nashville, we had to learn ourselves. No one was experienced in the field. So, on how to perform the scope properly. So we, for a couple of years, just tested stuff out. And thankfully, we had a system set in place to where we tracked every task that we were doing. We knew how many man hours were in a certain task, equipment hours, certain quantities of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And we implemented that early on. And it was basically just stored on a cloud. So we could analyze how all those projects went, whether I made 80% profit margin or minus 80.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so which that's not exaggeration.
Sure.
So that trial phase almost broke me, but we have so much useful information that like we can set up a job now, know what we're facing in this area, and just knock it out of the park.
How did no one really have experience on it? Did it because kind of the regulations were changing?
Well, so
the city was growing into new areas.
Well, so first of all, there's no logging industry until you get into far west or far east Tennessee.
Yeah.
If you go into West Tennessee, like around Memphis, it's just like Georgia. It's all like pine
stands,
plantations. Yeah. And there's all sorts of loggers out there.
I didn't know around Memphis they had logging too.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have that labor pool to pull from. So we literally had to train everyone.
Yeah.
While we were learning.
The interesting thing about logging too is as you log land, you manage the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why California's had a lot of problems because they got rid of most of the logging industry and now their forests are they're all unmanaged.
Yep.
And when they're unmanaged, a lot of growth builds up, a lot of fuel builds up, and then when it goes, it really goes. Whereas in the Southeast, all the forests are really dialed in. Because that's how they make money is the health of the forest makes them money. So they're incentivized to care for the land. But Middle Tennessee without logging, nothing's managed.
Right.
Like I've been hiking, running around the woods. You're like, this is a mess out here.
Yeah.
This has not been touched in a long time.
It's a bunch of bodock trees.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of junk.
Not worth anything.
No.
And it tears stuff up. You know. So
it's just trial and error.
Trial and error. And thankfully we had a bunch of people, backing us that trusted us, and we got through it. But it was not easy.
Yeah. The good news is though, if you can get through it, you build a little moat around the business. And then once where you're at, like having a grinder, for example. If you're an earthwork contractor to have clearing and a grinder, you got to keep that thing busy to pay for it. It's an expensive, so you need to keep that thing moving all the time, which is, unless you're huge, very difficult to do, or it's spanning multiple states or whatever it is, and you're just moving it around. But with you can go clear.
They
for all
don't
the
have the volume to justify buying the forestry equipment.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. But then once you get into the forestry equipment's unique. It's like, I can't go to United Rentals
No.
and say, hey, United, could I have a grinder dropped off my job site this afternoon? Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But most other equipment you can go rent nowadays. The stuff you deal in, you can't just go find it.
Yeah. You can find grinders every once in a while, but like what they'll make you do is typically they're between, depending on what size you get, they're between $40,000 and $60,000 a month.
Damn.
So, and you have to put the money up front.
Oh.
So you literally pay them and then they drop it off on your site.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Man, that's not cheap.
Yeah.
Well, because they're notoriously, they just tear themselves apart.
Yeah, they do. They just pretty much destroy themselves.
Yeah.
And they're astronomically expensive. Like on our machine, we had to replace, a couple months ago, we had to replace a in-feed chain. That's basically the conveyor belt going into the mill.
Mm-hmm.
lasts maybe 2,500 hours, 3,000 hours, something like that, and it was 60 grand.
Damn. 60 grand.
Yeah.
Holy
If
smokes.
you tear up a mill, it's 80.
Woof. Wow. So you have to be pretty careful.
Yeah, you have to
How
be
you're feeding it
extreme. You have to be extremely careful. You got to make sure things are tight, nothing's loose. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can go wrong. It is truly a science. I have a guy, that's our mechanic. His name's Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
He stays with the machine. It does not run unless if he's sitting right there. So, like, he comes with the machine.
Wow.
So he doesn't hardly leave its side. He might go somewhere if it's not running, but he'll just sit there in a truck, and as soon as something happens, he's out there working on it.
Yeah.
Because you're down a day or two, which is not unheard of with a grinder. I mean, that's a lot of revenue lost.
Well, and that's kind of the choke point of the operation.
Yeah.
That machine.
Yeah.
It's like a crusher too, but I see contractors that run crushers really well, and I see contractors that don't run crushers well.
So crushers are about the same price. The only difference between a grinder and a crusher is the grinder is high velocity. The crusher's low velocity. So when something goes wrong, like the grinder will literally implode. So like the mill in it, my guys might get on to me here. I'm not sure how much the mill weighs, but I think it's between 3,000 and 4,000 pounds. It might be 5,000 pounds. I can't remember, but it spins at roughly 2,000 RPM, I think.
Yeah,
guys, you can correct me on that. But I mean, you lose a tooth or you send something through it. I mean,
well, that's the other tricky thing compared to that with a crusher. A crusher, the material you're feeding in is typically pretty consistent. You're getting it out of a hole somewhere that's just rock, typically.
Yeah.
What you're dealing in, you don't entirely know. Like the material you're feeding into that can vary, or something could be in there that you're not catching, or
yes,
you can throw stuff in there that's not supposed to go in there.
Yes,
exactly. A lot more easily than a crusher.
So site work contractors out there, typically it's cheaper for us to come in and clear for you versus us coming and grinding your piles. Yeah. So sometimes we have to do that though, because they've already cleared it, and then all the trees are sitting out there, and
just kind of a mess.
Exactly. And we have to shear it up. We have to sort through it. We have to, face it all in one direction. It's just a long process. If you don't, on our typical clearing process, we self-perform logging. So, that's another difference since last time we talked. We self-perform logging now. If you log a site and then you come in and clear and grub it and grind it, you're going to spend half the time grinding versus just grinding everything. So literally you're doubling your grind time and material you have to haul off or hide on site if you don't have us just clear it from the beginning.
How often does that happen where contractors will just do it themselves?
Well, it's been happening it happened more often like a few years ago in Nashville specifically, but now people are knowing to, just have us, bid it from the beginning, and, we can probably save you something. But real quick, one time we went to a site and we were grinding some piles that the contractor had already cleared. And there was some bit off of a drilling machine. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's on a drilling machine for blasting. It was some like big pin that was about this long.
Woof.
And we sent it through that grinder, and it tore up both mill bearings on the exterior part of the mill. Yeah. So, you know, you just got to watch stuff like that. There are safety precautions you can take, but sometimes you're just not going to catch something.
Yeah.
But we run shears to where you're going to shear up all that material and find any contaminants or anything. We used to not do that, but now we are doing that on everything.
Because it's better to do that.
It's a safety precaution more than anything. So
that's fascinating. So it'll be a shear on an excavator.
Yeah.
You'll just cut the trees up essentially.
Yeah.
Like giant scissors.
Yes. Now if it's tree tops, you don't have to worry about that. And lots of times you're not having to use that except on like stumps. Unless if you have like just some gnarly tree that you can't market, you just shear it up to where you can fit it all in there efficiently, and it just reduces vibrations and different things.
This kind of reminds me when you go to the big mines, so they'll have the shovels. Mm-hmm. So typically like a face shovel, for example. So it's a hydraulic shovel. You're digging into the face, or a rope shovel, whatever it is. They'll have a camera on the front looking down at just the teeth and the ground engaging tools, and it uses AI, and so it'll say, "Oh, we're missing a tooth. You better stop right now. The tooth was just there. It's not there anymore." And they stop, because you throw one of those things through the crusher, you're fucked. Like that is a long.
If someone creates that for a horizontal grinder, I'll buy it tomorrow.
Oh, but the problem is, like in a mine, you somewhat control the variables, but with what you do, you don't control the variables. Like, yeah. Okay, great. You could watch for the teeth or parts on your machines, but that's no guarantee that there's nothing in there.
Right.
That's the crazy thing. Did you have the grinder when we last talked?
Yes.
You did have the grinder?
Yep.
Do you just have one grinder?
So, we have a larger grinder that it pretty much keeps up with our workload. We can send it anywhere.
Yeah.
Put in perspective, we properly perform a clearing site and organize it well. That grinder will process roughly an acre in an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Oh, damn. So you can chew through quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit on it. Yeah. And if you're logging it, then you have less to process.
Yes.
Because you're pulling out the good stuff.
Yes.
The logging.
Well, so that is after a log
that's
process.
After.
If you're just, grinding everything, you'll have 6 to 8 hours an acre.
Damn. Really?
Yeah.
Because you have to fit the big stuff through.
Yes. Yes. And that's the advantage of having us clear it versus, just piling it up and then hiring someone to come in and grind it.
The logging, when did you start that?
We started that this year in Tennessee. So in Georgia, I have several, or primarily one logging contractor that will come in and clear cut the whole site for us. And they're phenomenal to work with. In Tennessee, there's no loggers that, somehow we have to get rid of junk material, even if it just covers the trucking. So we just started self-performing it.
And you said you have a feller buncher running.
Yes.
Just sweet. You have a skidder?
Yes.
So you pull the trees out with skidder?
Yes.
And you have a loader to put them on a truck?
So we'll sometimes use excavators for that, but we're probably going to have a log loader here pretty shortly.
That's badass.
So, yeah.
It makes it a lot easier because you can size stuff.
Yeah.
And sort as you're going.
Yeah. I got a guy that works for me now. He's an arborist, and I don't know.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about logging.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like turn him loose, and he and my grubbing foreman will collaborate and kind of organize the site. And
that's an art in itself.
Yeah.
Being able to look at a wooded area and identify, one, what trees are what.
Yep.
Where they should go.
Don't ask me.
They all look the same to me. They're all trees.
Yep.
With just one species. Maybe I could tell like a pine from a few others, from an oak. Like I can make that distinction, but I didn't grow up around trees. I grew up in the desert, and we just had spiky things. We didn't have trees. To identify what is even worth logging, 1, 2, to then come up with a plan on how to execute it. Because I've watched these, like a Fowler buncher. You don't just go into a forest and cut everything. You're sorting. You're doing it very deliberately. The whole time you're in there. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not just willy nilly. Like let's just cut all the trees down.
Your production, is determined by how good your buncher operator is,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes back from there.
Well, yeah, because they're cutting and then they're sorting as they go. They're putting it into piles, and then the skidder grabs the piles. But if the pile isn't what it needs to be,
Exactly.
then there's more work at.
And this
Jack
is
or whatever.
common knowledge to me, but I'm not the expert on this at all.
I'm so far from an expert on logging.
Yeah.
I know enough.
Yeah.
I know enough about most things in this world, but any deeper than that, good. I don't know. That's not how my brain works. I'm not a details guy.
That's not how I am either. I'm a big picture guy, long term guy.
Yeah.
The last thing you want me in is operations.
Yeah.
I will screw so much stuff up.
I've learned the same thing with my business. The more I get out of day to day, the better our business operates.
Yep.
And it's not by accident.
In fact, Logan Palmer, he's been working for me for over 3 years now. He's my project manager, and we were having a talk the other day. And he had a come to Jesus meeting with me because I was giving him like specific tasks that I was needing him to get done. But and I realized through that conversation, I was like, man, I just gotta I need to tell him as a whole what needs to get done and let him figure out the details. And he caught me in the act by doing that. I wasn't even realizing I was doing it. So
the whole construction industry would be better off if that's how things ran.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But it's almost every single job I go to. Here's what we're doing today. Here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing.
I was just at a job the other day, and one of the lead, I think it was on a utility crew. Is it a utility crew or a grading crew? I can't remember, but he was like, man, all these young people, they don't know what they're doing, and just driving down this wrong road or whatever, and I'm just like, it's all doom and gloom, it's just, I don't know. When I walk out on my job site, obviously sometimes I'll look at it and I'm like, man, I wonder why they're doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't address it like, hey, idiot, why are you doing it this way?
Whenever I'm confused as to why something's happening some way, I always first, why are you doing it this way? Out of just genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
And I'd say 4 out of 5 times, there's a very good reason for why they're doing something. The other time, it's like, I've seen a better way to do this, but like, who the fuck am I? I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
But I know, I'm pretty confident I know a better way to do this. But 4 out of 5 times, it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, brilliant. I love that. Good for you guys. And I'm just like, yep, I was wrong. But I'm always curious about it rather than like, why are you doing it that way? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Which is the approach that most people take on the internet. Whoa, why do they do it that way? I'm like, dude, you're seeing a 15-second video. Like, you're making a lot of assumptions using a very small amount of data. Like, do you understand the flaw that's happening right now?
Yeah.
And it's everybody. They're just like, I need to criticize because that's not how we do it. It's like,
yep.
Yeah, but you've never left Mississippi. So how do you know?
Exactly.
How do you know it's how it's supposed to be done in North Carolina?
Right. I've gotten to where I'll show up and like, I'll talk to our guys, like they're phenomenal at what they do, and I'm proud of them. But I'm just like, if they ask me a question, I'm just like, just ask Logan. I don't even, like, if I'm going to completely screw your day up, if I say anything right now, just talk to him, you know, because I'll just like start something, you know, and it's completely different of what they needed to get done.
Yeah.
So,
but that's like largely the antidote to the conflict between generations.
yeah.
Is humility. Like if I'm a younger person leading older, more experienced people, I'm not going to act like I know what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't need to. I can happily say, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help? How should we do this? How have you done this in the past? Most of the time, you'll have the asshole every once in a while, of course. Most of the time, though, they'll be like, oh, yeah, this is how you do it. That sounds great to me. Let's go give it a shot, guys. Yep. And then you support them.
There you go.
Life's good.
Yeah.
Typically. But it's when I'm insecure or I don't want to admit I don't know what I'm doing, and I try to act like I'm the boss and I have the plan and no, we're going to do it this way because I know better or I have this information that you don't.
And obviously you have to explain it in a way that there are obviously certain things you know that other people probably don't. Yeah. And those issues have to be addressed like saying, hey, we have to get this done by X, you know. And I've gotten to where I'm just like, hey, figure out how to get that done instead of me saying, okay, we need to get here. You need to do this to get here.
It's human nature. We like to be in control of ourselves.
Yeah.
We like our independence. And there's a lot of theories on why that is from a human nature standpoint. But if you start to approach it, like just give people just a little bit of independence. Like don't take their ability to make their own decisions away from them, because that's when you create resentment, rebellion, negative stuff happens.
And they won't think outside the box.
No.
They won't be creative.
And you're worse off. And I feel like a lot of, in like any kind of leadership position or management, but it's really apparent in like your line of work, for example. You don't make the company any money.
Yeah. I'm overhead.
You don't perform a single billable hour of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be in a machine every once in a while, maybe.
No, I'm never.
So you're not, you don't do a single billable thing for your business.
Nope.
So it's like you are overhead.
Yeah.
You are not at all what is the main point of the business. But it's always the people that aren't actually performing the work saying, this is how we're going to do the work. It's like, I mean, I get it. You're privy to the meetings and what the permit says and the deadlines and the costs. And I get all that, but you're not actually on doing the work. So maybe let's talk to the people doing the work.
Exactly. And that's where I've gotten to where it, like, I mean, I've lost practice, you know, like I look at job sites, through an Excel sheet now, you know, but I've also been on the other side of it, but I've been out of it for probably 2.5 years, you know, and there's a difference. So I have that respect for these guys. Like all of our guys just work their butts off and every day for our company, and I'm proud of them. I'd like to think I haven't lost that sense of being reasonable, you know, because I understand what they're doing. I understand that it's hard. I understand that, you know, the weather sucks. This job sucks or whatever. You know, I understand how that is.
The weather really sucks around here a lot.
It does. So
has the winter been this year worse than any others, or is this typically how it is? I haven't been here enough winters to know.
We've just gotten a lot of rain.
Yeah, it seems like every day.
But I will say this, because of the underground caves. I'm not sure if they're called caves, but passageways. The water disappears pretty quickly here. I don't think there's just a whole lot of clay in the ground. So water runoff is pretty good here. It's typically hilly. Now, grading contractors that only work here might argue with that, but we've worked in swamps. So, if you're in an area that's got a ton of clay and it's low lying, and it might be beginning of summer before it dries out. But here, if you have a 5-day stretch, no matter how much it's rained and it's warm, and the wind's blowing,
dries out.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of sites too are pretty rocky.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yes.
There's not the joke is Tennessee topsoil, which is just straight rock.
Yeah.
Every single job there's a drill. Every single job there's 5 drills. It'll be a gas station project, and there'll be 2 drills out there. It's like, they gotta get the tanks.
Everything between Cookeville and Jackson. It's all straight rock.
Straight rock. But then you go either side of that, straight, just red dirt.
Yep.
On either side.
Yep.
We're just up on this little big rock.
Yep.
But you go north of us, you go south of us, you go either direction, east or west, it's all dirt.
Yep.
It's weird how the geography in there's a geology. That's the word. Not geography. Geology is laid out. Do you go into Mississippi?
So I have spent a lot of time in Mississippi. We have never performed a job in Mississippi yet.
I gotta introduce you to Nick Burns. He's gonna be here for a podcast today too.
Okay.
He's a grading contractor down in Starkville, Mississippi.
Yep.
Another young guy. He'd be a good one to just talk with.
He's been on the show before, right?
Yeah.
I think I listened to it.
Yeah. He's super good dude.
Yeah.
Just another young guy, maybe worth talking to.
Yeah. I've spent some time in Starkville.
And Matt Moldenhauer.
Yep. With
Bellwether Logging.
Yep.
He might be another good one to talk to.
Yeah. He's in South Carolina.
He's in South Carolina. He's a numbers guy. He's a numbers guy.
Yep.
But he's also big picture. He can see the forest through the trees? Or see the forest beyond the trees? Or
I'm not
see the forest for the trees?
I don't think I've heard
I don't think that's it either. It's something about kind of big picture. You get caught up in the trees, but you want to see the big picture, the actual forest.
Yeah.
He's really good at seeing the big picture. He's like a brilliant chess player when it comes to logging. And what he's done in South Carolina in just a few years is really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to talk to him. I'm pretty close down there quite a bit. So
yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Athens, Georgia.
Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Did you do work down there?
We do. And my wife is from Athens. So
where don't you technically live in Kentucky?
Yes.
You're just right up above the border.
Yeah, but like your office is an hour and a half from my house. So it's not.
Are you up towards Bowling Green?
Murray. You know where?
I don't know. I don't know Kentucky.
Murray State. Okay. We're as far west pretty much as you can get. We're like right above Jackson, Tennessee.
Oh, the last time I saw you was with the tornado deal.
Yep.
So you're over
Mayfield.
You're over closer to that in that direction.
Yes.
Yeah, in Mayfield.
Yes.
When was that? That was end of
That was December of last year. 21. 21, yeah.
Yeah, December of 21. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, I went up.
That was an adventure.
I met you up in Mayfield. It was like you were up there right after it happened.
Yeah, I was there we were both there at like 6:30, 7 in the morning, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the craziest things I've seen.
Yeah.
Anything disaster related is just so, I've seen some pretty bad flooding. I've seen fire. Like we went to Paradise and saw the fire cleanup there, Malibu. That was a wild experience. But that was totally different because a fire, it rolls through a place like Paradise. It vaporizes everything. It takes houses and basically just puts them in the atmosphere. There's nothing left. There's fireplaces, there's foundations, there's melted washers and dryers, cars, but that's it. But the tornado, that was the first time I'd seen a tornado. First time again.
You've never seen a tornado?
No, kid from Arizona. Dude, Arizona's a good deal. I had no idea. We didn't have to worry about shit. It's just hot in the summer. Just put up with the hot in the summer. You get 6 months of beautiful weather. There's no tornadoes.
Hot with no humidity.
Yeah. But people that say that, it's like, all right, go work in 115 and we can talk after. Because it's like, 100 and humid is just miserable. It sucks.
Yeah.
But when working, because I've worked in both. I've ran in both. I've spent plenty of time in both now. But 115, 120, it's like you go into fight or flight almost. Your brain is like, this is not safe. Like being out here is not cool. Like I do not feel good at all. But it's like up until that point, it's kind of miserable too. But it's like once you're past 115, I remember those days vividly because it is a different fucking world. It's just gnarly.
Have you ever, I know you work out a lot. Have you ever sat in a sauna?
Yeah.
Dude, holy crap. I started doing that about 8 months ago. It's changed me.
I don't have access to one consistently. I technically could probably find one, but I'm not that dedicated.
I think it's like 190 degrees in ours. Like
that's hot. That's hot.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You know, like, I mean, you sit in there 6 minutes, my heart rate's at like 170.
That's the crazy thing is, your heart rate goes up because your body, you're trying to survive. Like you go into this whole different physical state.
Yeah.
To just tolerate.
That's the closest I've been to Arizona heat, I guess.
Yes.
So
well, that's far more extreme. But anyway. No natural disaster. But going up to the tornado afterwards, it took the whole town and just threw it everywhere. Just took like a whole town and just threw it all over the place.
Literally straight down through downtown. It's gone.
A whole downtown. But it's just garbage.
Yeah.
Like that's all it looks. It's just trash and just debris. The whole place. It's like just a bulldozer. Just drove right over the town and left everything behind.
But anything outside its path was just fine unless if a house fell on it.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could, like, going in, you could see the path.
Have you seen the, like a true, like, satellite image of the path?
No.
From Arkansas through Kentucky, I forget how many miles it was on the ground, but it was literally like, it was straight as a laser. And it was, I forget how wide it was, but it was literally, it looked like I'm a clearing guy. It was almost, it looked like a power line right of way that was a half mile wide. I mean,
and whatever was in that right of way,
straight it was. I figured it would be turning and all this stuff, but I mean, it was just straight as arrow.
Did you get any work with that? Nothing.
FEMA has contractors that cover certain areas, and that's already kind of like pre-organized before anything happens.
Dude, it's so the whole COVID thing it just got me like Scooby-Doo. Like you pull the mask off the bad guy, you're like, that's who it is. Like I feel like it kind of did that with like the government and the media and everything. So now I'm just kind of looking around like, that's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah.
Huh. Like I used to be just like, well, that's how it works. Like that must be the best way.
Yeah.
But now
they were pulling in grinders from, I think, Louisiana.
So the disaster thing was fascinating because a disaster happens. Everybody goes to help until FEMA comes in a few days later or whatever it is and just says, nope, everybody stop.
Yep.
Shut it down. If you're here, you have equipment, you can help. No, you're on the list. So stop. And then everything stops. And then it starts to pick up from there per whoever's on the list. And it's like, how do you get on the list? How does that work? How does this make sense? Like, there's all these people willing to help, but I learned that's not how
You
it
can
works.
get on the list. It's just a long process, and they're probably not going to call you unless if you have prior experience,
But
which
there's-
is hard to get experience when.
And I know I've learned that there's this whole industry that chases these disasters. There's
Yep.
these multi-billion-dollar organizations that just specialize in disaster response. That's all they do, which I think it's great. Like you need to clean something up after a disaster. I think that's fantastic. But I also just wonder, I'm like, how inefficient is this? Like what are the margins on that work? Like,
Yeah.
like who's taking advantage of who here? How are the insurance companies taking advantage? How are
Yeah.
these contracts, like,
Well, I've also
something feels weird about it.
There's some contractors that have gone bankrupt over it as well. So I mean, you better know who you're working with, and I might be misspeaking here, but I mean,
I misspeak every podcast.
yeah. Well, I just know it's recorded, so it never changes. So, but anyways, there was a company somewhere, I won't say their name, but they basically misbid a storm cleanup job, and I mean, you have no idea how much material you're hauling off, and it wasn't a cost plus scenario.
Mm.
And they just figured the quantities, and the way I
Way
understood,
off.
yeah.
And if that's the project, like you don't have resources to absorb something like that,
Yeah.
rough, dude.
Yeah.
Rough. But then,
And going back to what I was saying earlier, that's been a situation I've been in. Basically, I think most contractors have. It's just
yeah. But
you
then
have to know how to make it through it, and hopefully you can. So
I've learned though, I was just reading about this last night. If you're a big contractor, you can weasel your way around through change orders and just through lawsuits. You can just sue. And if you have the lawyers, you have the money, you have the time, we're just going to go to court.
yeah,
Like there was this, the one project and this project has driven me nuts from the beginning. Cause from the moment I heard about it, my bullshit detector was just like, ooh, something is off here. Something is fucking off. And it's the high-speed rail in California. They spent over $100 billion. Guess how many? To build a high-speed rail between two areas that are it's not to downtown San Francisco to downtown LA. It's out. Guess how many miles after $100 billion? Guess how many miles of track they've set?
how much? 0.
No miles of track yet. And they're still missing 10% of the land needed to even build the damn thing.
Wait, so you're saying
They've spent $100 billion
on the land?
on the infrastructure, but they haven't actually put the track in yet.
Yeah,
Like
but they bought the land. That's where all their.
well, and they've built a line, but they
Okay.
haven't actually set the track.
I see.
But they're still missing segments. So you'll drive. It's out in farm fields a lot of ways. So but you're driving up, and you'll notice it's elevated above farm fields.
Yep.
So it's elevated track above farm fields, and then it'll just drop off, and we'll just be missing. And then it'll pick back up because it's like, why is that missing? And then you start to think, holy shit, I don't think they have the land. They don't have
Wow.
that piece.
Wow,
And
it's crazy.
this company came in, this big international contractor came in and bid this one portion of the rail and came in way lower than everybody else. And also said, we have this design change we're proposing that's going to save you a ton of money. No one asks any questions and they say, well, this seems like a good deal. Design change is great. Yeah, you have it. They end up going like twice. They're over budget by like 2 times. And this is to the tune of many, many billions of dollars. None of the design changes they proposed worked. They didn't implement any of it. And now it's all just in litigation.
Wow.
It's like that kind of stuff happens a lot.
Yeah.
Another statistic was he compared, I'm hoping to have him on the podcast. It was a brilliant article. I think they built a new subway system in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
It was $70 million per mile of track. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is a
per,
lot
per
of,
mile.
yeah.
Pretty expensive. The new system they just built in New York was over, I believe, $3 billion per mile of track. The most expensive subterranean rail project in world history.
It's crazy.
Is it any faster? No. Is it any nicer? No.
Hmm.
I think it was $3.5 billion per mile of track. So it's like, on this big infrastructure, on the big disaster, it's like, there's wiggle room there.
Maybe we should, or they should hand that over to Elon. He has ways of making things cheap.
Well, but, so, Elon, so he was sitting in traffic and said, I'm going to go do this better. The best tunnel boring machine goes 14 times slower than a snail.
Yep.
And he says,
he made one, didn't he?
Well, and the mission was to go I think the mission was beat the snail, which I believe is a brilliant, brilliant mission. But the problem is, it's not that we don't have the technology to go build these tunnels. It's that in the United States, and you're probably familiar with this, but Tennessee's not that bad. It's all the environmental regulations that you have to adhere to. It's all of the permitting. It's all of these labor laws. It's all of this political machine that every project has to endure to get greenlit in the first place. That's what's making this really damn expensive. So he said, it's not that we don't have the ability to do this stuff. Like he pointed out, like I think one of his examples is the Oroville Dam project, because it was emergency. It was an emergency job. So they waived, if they were going to go do that job, it would have taken a decade to go get it approved and all these environmental studies and this and that. It was awarded, I think, a few days after it happened. They had mobilized 2 weeks after it happened.
Talking about the boring company?
No,
or
this was the new spillway in the Oroville Dam when it failed.
Okay. Tracking.
They waive everything. They go build it, knock it out of the park, just kick the shit out of this project. It was an amazing feat of engineering. That's because they had all like the handcuffs taken off and they could just build stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I think the boring company, they haven't had any of these, like the tunneling community is a little apprehensive about it because it's like, we're up against physics and geology. Like, you can't really game that in any way. It's not as simple as that.
Yeah.
But I also think there is plenty of room to innovate at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely working on that traffic problem.
But so. I think the better way to do it, tackle traffic, is through automation. Yeah. That's a different story. But that's to say, like, you didn't know how to go do land clearing. You just had to figure it out,
right?
Which causes a lot of problems, but also allows for innovation because you're not restricted by the way it's always done.
Exactly. And we've done a lot of things differently than what other people would do, but it taught us other things that other people might not know. They might, who knows? But just allows us to think outside the box, you know, and just try new things. Because I think with what we do, we continue on this pace, tracking everything and automating things as much as we can. I mean, I think we're just going to be able to get faster and faster and faster.
Like what's something that you've done that's worked really well?
Well, so the big thing was in Tennessee.
And if you compete,
do what?
If you also bid land clearing work in Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, stop listening right now.
Yeah,
you can go. They're not listening anymore.
Well, the biggest thing was the timber. So, learning how to get rid of junk wood without paying for it was basically the way to fix a lot of our problems.
Because you can just move faster.
Yeah, you can move faster. Your haul off's less. Other people have used different routes like that. They've started their own like green waste recycling companies. So, and they sell the mulch, and there's all sorts of different ways that people go about it. But for us, I just wasn't real interested in that. I was like, surely there's a way to eliminate this stuff as much as possible, and that's just what our primary focus has been. And we have grown as a company from like a revenue standpoint, simply because over the past few years we have kept the same amount of people, roughly, but our efficiencies from the data we've been collecting it's just blown up like crazy. And so we're literally trying to turn it into a science.
How do you collect the data? Is it like a spreadsheet?
So we have a system where we upload a project into this software, and it's not HCSS or anything like that, because a company like us, we don't need HCSS. I mean, we don't have any materials and all sorts of stuff to keep track of.
Yeah, you essentially have labor and equipment.
Labor and equipment, fuel and trucking.
Yeah,
I mean that's literally it.
Yeah.
So we have a software we use that Komatsu actually created, and they kind of introduced it to us, and we were able to kind of be their guinea pig in a way. Logan knows more about it because he's been the one meeting with them. But basically, we upload a project. Our guys show up to that project. They clock into that project, and then their task that they're clocked into associates it with a cost code, to where we know exactly how much time they're spending on what based on the job scenarios. So it's constantly, like right now, I have no idea what the guys are doing right now, but it's just building data, and I can look it up on my iPhone.
So you can see, at the end of the day,
I can see a live look at what happened.
Because everybody's clocked in right now.
Yeah.
For the day. That's pretty cool.
And then they switch throughout the day when they change tasks.
Yeah. And you don't have that many tasks. I can imagine it's pretty simple.
There's probably 10.
Yeah, 10. Okay. Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, it's
300
not,
a civil contractor.
Now you can continue to narrow it down.
Yeah.
I should say, so there's probably 10 in the grubbing and grinding process. There's 10 subcategories of major tasks.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So logging, there's different ones. Trucking, there's different ones.
That's pretty cool.
And then under demolition, there's different ones.
That's the sweet spot too. Is increasing your revenue per person.
Yep.
And ideally, your profitability goes with that.
Yep.
That's big time. What do you do with all the wood? Do you sell it? Where does it go?
Yeah, it goes to mills, and then...
So there are mills around here? How far do you have to go for a mill?
Anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And so they'll actually buy it? Or they'll just take it?
Yes. But most of the time, sometimes we'll make something off of it. Lots of times they'll just cover the trucking.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper to do it that way than running it through your chipper or your grinder or whatever. So we just do the bare minimum of that, and it's allowed our production to get up much higher.
What do the mills produce around here? Is it chips?
Who
knows?
So that's a TJ question.
Yeah,
he's my arborist. I'm not really sure what they do with it. I know one place he takes all of our cedar too, and I'm guessing they're making decorative furniture out of it or something.
Oh wow!
I don't know. So
wow, you need to get some furniture.
Yeah, definitely
from your operation.
Definitely.
A chair or something.
Yeah, yeah.
We went to a plant in North Carolina that takes pine and makes it into pellets for power generation in Europe. So they basically...
What was that company called?
I would need to look it up. I don't remember.
I talked to a company a while back.
They're big time. They're a big company.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but they made like I think animal bedding.
It's kind of what it looked like. It
Yeah.
looked like something you'd put in a little guinea pig
Yeah,
like enclosure for them to
Yeah.
sleep on or something like that, or I don't know, like in a barn
yeah.
for goats. But they feed it into power plants to burn it before power.
Yeah.
But they put it on. It's in the middle of North Carolina. They put it on trucks. Yeah, they put it on trucks. So they load trucks, drive it all the way to the coast, put it on ships, take the ships across the Atlantic to Europe, and then feed it into their power plants over there.
We need some of those boiler plants here in Central Tennessee.
Mhm.
So if anyone's out there listening,
Well,
please do that.
They use
We got too much mulch.
a lot of wood out there, and they incinerate most of the trash.
Yeah.
If not all the trash is incinerated
Oh.
in most of Europe.
Say like Georgia, North Carolina, I think some in South Carolina, that they take all the mulch and chips to these boiler plants.
I've been to a few actually. We went to one it was North Carolina as well. They this company recycles railroad ties.
Yep.
So the railroads, they're changing ties out every few years. They're just nonstop changing ties out. And they basically the rail gangs will just throw them off to the side of the rail. And then they come along with a truck that's high rail, so just zooms along the rail with a little grapple on the back, then picks up the rails or picks up the ties, throws it in the truck, or throws it in these little rail cars. And then they take it all the way through the rail system to their yard in North Carolina. And then they sort them. So some of them are turned into landscaping ties. For, you see railroad tie retaining wall. So that's where they come from. They probably came from this company, North Carolina. So they'll sort each one and like, that's a good one or that's a shit one. And then the shit ones go to the local power plant and they have these monster shredders at the plant and they just feed ties into them all day long. It just reeks of creosote and all of it goes right into the power plant.
So Lynn, my grinder mechanic, used to work on one of those at a paper mill. One of those giant chippers, I guess it's a chipper.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
And they're stationary. I mean, it has a cab on it. Like the guy is up there on the feeder on the little crane, like in a cab. So it's big enough to actually have its own machine on the grinder, feeding it in. And the feeder is huge. It's just awesome. It's so cool. I need to show you some pictures.
Yeah. I'd like to look at it.
I'm describing it like I know what it looks like, but this was years ago now. So if the chips, you either have to, how often are you able to keep them on site versus haul them off?
It's all dependent on what that contractor's wanting done. Lots of times they can hide it on site. They might put in a pond or they might mix it in topsoil.
Yeah.
But sometimes they just don't have enough room and we end up having to haul it off. So we take it to mulch yards. Sometimes if the mulch yards don't have enough room, we have places around Nashville we just haul it to, like random farms and different things. So
people just take it?
Yeah.
Does it ever go to the landfill for cover or no?
No, and we're not willing to pay the tonnage rates out there.
Well, I don't even know. I don't even know if this is a thing. But if they use it for daily cover,
yeah, and
you don't have to pay for it.
So I'm not sure. So I'm sure the local like green waste companies they might sell to the landfills, but I completely made that up, so I don't know if that's true or not. But that's what I'm assuming happens.
Because I know it depends state to state. Like some states are just like we don't give a shit. You just throw whatever you want away. Like we don't, it needs to be clean, but like don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then other states there is rules on rules on rules on rules. So a place like California, for example, where landfills are kind of artificially really expensive, like way more expensive than right next door in Arizona. They, which I don't know if it is a good or bad thing. I don't know, but it is what it is. And so the demolition contractors, they, like a Firma in San Francisco, they'll feed all of the wood debris and everything coming off of the buildings they'll tear down. They put it in up top. It's like a top feed. And then it'll spit the metal out. It'll spit concrete out. It'll spit shredded wood and insulation out. And that shredded wood and insulation, it reduces the volume. So you're trucking a lot less than if you were just loading demolition, like debris. Yeah. And then the landfill will take it as daily cover. So they don't have to pay to get rid of it. And then the concrete's recycled, the metal's recycled.
So that's a mobile machine they bring on site? What's it called?
I have no idea, but it's really cool.
They made it?
No. They might have made it because they fabricate stuff themselves, but no, I feel like you can buy them now. I can't imagine they're cheap, but that's what they do with it sorts the demolition debris. So, and I've heard other demolition contractors doing that too now. They're shredding all of the wood and everything coming off demolition projects, and the landfill will take it as cover.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
I have no idea if that's a thing in Tennessee. The state of demolition in Tennessee it worries me a little bit sometimes when I drive by, especially the small demolition contractors. I've seen some. I'll drive by a house getting torn up, and it looks like a fucking tornado. Just there's just shit everywhere, and the dumpster's overflowing, and the rental machine is just beat to hell. And I'm just like, and they just leave it like that. It'll be like 6 p.m. They're not even working. It's just a shit show.
Yeah.
I'm like, so no one like that's cool here? And I'm like, apparently. I'll drive by a week and a half later. It looks just as fucked up. I'm like, what are these guys even doing? What's even happening here? How can you take multiple weeks for a residential demolition and still be in business? Like,
yeah.
How does that even happen?
Yeah, house. I mean, it might. Yeah, I mean, have it down in a few hours, typically.
It shouldn't take that long. I mean, most houses here are not that big.
Yeah.
And there will be a lot of demolition coming up in this town, I'm sure, because I've driven by multiple places that I know were just built like a year ago that are being worked on.
Really?
Like the siding will be off or something like that, and they're redoing it. Because you see how they built this stuff, and you're like,
yeah.
No, that is not built to last. Like that is no pyramid. Yeah. I know for sure that is all total garbage.
To keep up with how many people are moving here, like it's insane.
Yeah, well, I get the demand, but also some of it's like that's criminal, and I know what they're charging for that. It is not even remotely worth whatever they're charging for. Like I would never buy that. How that was built, if I had any intent of staying there for more than 2 years.
What do you think the draw is to Nashville for younger people? Is it just a central location, or?
I've tried to figure that out. I tell people, everyone, that's one of the, like, I'll get 3 questions. That's one of the questions everywhere I go, no matter where I'm at in the world.
Yeah.
And I'll say I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're like, "Wow, Nashville, huh? That's really cool. That's a great spot." Or, "Oh, I've always wanted to go to Nashville." I'm like, What about it? I think there's an allure to the South, especially if you're from somewhere like California or like Northeast, where everybody's an asshole. You come to the South, you're like, oh, I kind of I like it. Like that old lady just called me sweetie. I could get used to this, man.
Or you talk to Hick like me.
Yeah, well, but it's just like the Southern hospitality. It has a feel to it. You're like, oh, this is fun. And then you have I think the music industry has added this allure to Nashville, Tennessee that draws people in. And I think there's like this fantasy of everybody becoming a country star or like living the country lifestyle, whatever it is. And people think, like, I feel like they almost act like you ride around on a horse here. You're like, I don't think you've been around here a while.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like
that's
that.
Texas.
This is the least country place I've ever been.
Right.
I don't know why it's country capital, because I grew up going to like Montana, Wyoming, Texas. It's like, no, that's country.
Yeah, nothing is country about Broadway.
No, nothing about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But you see like the guys walking through the airport in their new cowboy hats, or it's just like, you look like a jackass. I know you've been watching Yellowstone. I know you're excited about this, but like, it just doesn't look good. Like,
yeah,
you didn't earn it, man. You need to earn a hat like that.
Exactly.
I feel like you got to fit the profile, and I can tell you don't.
Well, I think I always compare everything to Atlanta because it's the biggest city that's, I guess, closest to here. But
yeah,
from what I know, we're only a third of the size of Atlanta.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of more growth to be here. I think
there's a lot more growth, but we're also restricted from a geographical standpoint and a geological standpoint, because we have all of the rock and we have these rolling hills that kind of separates everything.
Mm-hmm.
So Tennessee, Nashville, it's not this big sprawling metropolis, really. It's kind of like all of these. You have Franklin and Lebanon. You have all these, little pockets that are all connected with one another, but all have their own little identity at the same time. I feel like it's just going to be more of that, like more development in these pockets rather than this big sprawling metropolis like a Charlotte or an Atlanta or Phoenix. Like, because Phoenix is just flat, so you can just, in every direction, you just develop.
Yeah.
There's no land.
I'll tell you, though, there are a lot of high rises around here being built.
It's gotten a lot more dense.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy, just even in the past year.
Well, but the development right next door, I think it's like 2,500 units.
And then the one right back here.
Oh, yeah. And then, they've been hammering this whole podcast. I was watching them work the other day, or yesterday. It's like, I need a drink. This is so stressful. Because it's not like I'm watching one thing that is clearly wrong. Mm-hmm. It's like, they're really doing that? And then I look 10 degrees. Holy shit. I look 10 degrees. Okay, these guys can't be that. And I'm like, oh my God, look at those guys. Like, everywhere I looked yesterday, it was just total pandemonium. And again, I'm just like, well, this is the state of the market, and supply and demand. There's more demand than there's supply. So, and I think it was ABC said there's still a shortage of 500,000 construction workers this year.
It's crazy.
And that, like, the retirements have not accelerated yet.
It's crazy.
And demand's cooled for commercial and residential across the board. There's still that shortage. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I hope younger people can be encouraged to, work in this industry. Because, I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. You have to build things. I mean, it's not going anywhere.
Unless we give it all, the only way out that I see is if we hand it all off to the Chinese. Which scares the shit out of me. But that's what Africa's done. That's what almost the entire Asian continent has done. Like Australia, it's starting to go in that direction in a little ways, here or there.
They'll have it if they can keep their population up.
They got some problems, but we have our problems too.
Yep.
Like, I just started studying the profile of our population and the demographics, and it's like,
it's on the way down.
Whoa, dude. Yeah, we've got a lot of old people.
Yep.
And not many young people coming at the bottom. It's like, so how are we going to get out of this? Is it, hey, everybody, can you have more kids? Is it more immigration? I don't know.
I got one kid right now. He was born 3.5 months ago. And I'm not one to want a bus full of kids. Like, I was an only child. So, like, I'm not really about that life, but people need to reproduce, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then also some people reproduce. You're like, should you really have children?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of those people too. It's like, or I could see him barely handle a dog, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, like they're going to have a kid in a year from now. They don't even know what to do with that little Labradoodle. It's like, oh, here we are.
Yeah, I know.
And then that's also the point that I kind of came to is you have the past generation complaining about this generation, but it's like,
but
wait a damn minute.
That kid,
these are your kids.
Yeah.
So what, huh? Like,
there's a chance though that kid might learn what not to do though.
That's valuable. Right?
Potentially.
That's valuable because I've learned about developmental psychology. It's you put your parents on a pedestal when you're developing as a child and think they're essentially perfect because you are worthless.
Yep.
So you have to view them as perfect because you're so insignificant and you can't fend for yourself. Then you don't want to like psychologically admit that like I might be in trouble here. That's not how the human brain works. But then once you gain your independence and you become an adult, you start to recognize that I am a flawed human being. And holy shit, my parents don't know what they're doing either. And that's when you can start, if you're deliberate about it, you can start to figure out, okay, how was I raised? How am I wired? And then what do I want to keep? Like, I like that. And then it's like, that is, let's put that off to the side. I'm like, great, we've identified it. Let's just put it over here. We don't need to worry about that one again.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, whatever your parents' problems were, insecurities, a lot of times it just gets passed right on to you. And then you pass it on to your kid and it just keeps going down the line.
Yep. Real quick, you're going to be at ConExpo, right?
Yeah, I'll be there the whole week.
You got
terrible.
You're like, you like hosting something out there with the Gold Rush guys?
I was about to post about that. Yeah, I actually kicked the show off. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I have a whole story about that I have a lot of bitterness. We had this idea that I thought was a pretty good idea. And it got to the point where it was just like, there was a misunderstanding somewhere, a breakdown of communication, and it didn't happen. And then I found out it was happening without us. And I'm like, wow. But I have to put my ego aside. I'm like, I'll make this successful. It doesn't matter. It's not about me. I'm a little bitter. My ego's a little hurt, but I'm not bitter at all. So there's this brilliant idea that ConExpo's had.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good idea. When I heard about this, I was like, guys, you get it. This is one hell of an idea. They're creating something called the Community Zone. And it is a place at the show for everybody to come together and talk and shoot the poop. What do you do? What do you do? Oh, you bought this machine? How is it? Well, it's great. It's a pile of shit. Whatever it is. That's the value of ConExpo. That's, I believe, that everybody says, this is like the most common talking point I hear from everybody. Oh, anybody can buy equipment. It's an equipment show. It's like, yeah, anybody can buy equipment. I bought a skid steer. Like, am I qualified to buy a skid steer? No, I rolled the damn thing over. Of course I'm not qualified. Anybody can buy equipment. It's the people that make the industry. So you need the tools, of course. You can't do anything without your grinder or your excavators or whatever. That's important, but that's not what makes the industry the industry. That's not what makes the industry special at the end of the day. It's the people. It's the people. And that's what drew me in. It's the equipment got me excited. It still gets me excited, but you get to know the people in this world and you're just like, I don't want to go anywhere else. Then you go see how the rest of society is and you're just like, I don't like this. Take me back to the logging operation in South Carolina. Like, yep, that's a lot more pure than hanging out at this fancy restaurant in the Gulch in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep.
So it's an area for the people of the show, wherever you're at, to get together. There's going to be performances, talks, whatever it is. There'll be food, beer. I don't know what they have planned specifically. But if I did it, if it were my idea, that's what it would have been. There would have been a place to come together and gather as an industry. So Dave and I will be speaking Tuesday, right when the show starts, from 1 to 2. We're going to be talking for a little bit. We're going to be answering questions, and then we're just going to be hanging out.
Do you get a pass for that? Or does anyone just show up?
Anybody can just show up. So
Okay,
so
cool.
that's what's cool about it, because you have the education sessions, which you have to spend money on.
Yeah.
And it's like somebody like you, could it be worthwhile? Maybe. But for the everyday person coming to the show that just wants to see the show, they don't want to spend the extra money.
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing about that. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to go find it somewhere. It should be front and center. I'm assuming, again, if I were to do this, I would have put it next to the festival grounds, the festival lot. I think that's where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be a really, really good time.
Cool.
So Tuesday, 1 to 2. And it's cool for me because I spent high school watching Dave on television.
Yep.
In college.
Yep.
And in college, I might have, and I've said this to the ConExpo organizers, I might have snuck in. I didn't really mean to, but I just walked into the show because I was wearing a cat polo and no one asked me a question before the show started.
Uh-huh.
When I was in college, I was by myself, and that was my first ConExpo.
Wow.
So I've gone from watching him on television, kind of just weaseling my way into the show, to now this. It's like,
It's crazy.
that's pretty cool.
Man, that's awesome. Humbling experience right there.
You want to know what's even cooler? We are putting together and I have not asked if I can talk about this, but here I am talking about it, a Dirt World, first ever Dirt World conference
Really?
in October. And we're going to have Jocko and Echelon Front
Oh, boy.
do a mini muster on day 1, and then a lot of amazing speakers and a whole amazing lineup on day 2. And it's going to be not, I feel like a lot of conferences now, they're focused on these details here or there. You know, if you're equipment people, if you're safety people, if whatever it is, it's kind of focused in that arena. This is just going to be focused on improving the leaders of the industry, really working on this workforce challenge we're facing.
Awesome.
So you'll have to get signed up for that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
Tell
gonna
me
be-
when
it's
and
gonna be a
where.
good time. Yeah, I think it'll be out, like early sign up will be out pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, and then I'll see you hopefully out in Las Vegas. You're probably going to be busy, but I'll see you there too.
No, I didn't. I've turned a lot of stuff down so that I can just hang out
Yeah.
and spend time with people.
I forget which room it's in, but I'm probably going to be in the forestry area. There's 2 rooms. I think
Mhm.
it's split between forestry, so I'll be in that
There's some
area
cool,
hanging out.
Tiger
quite a
Cat, Weiler. There's some badass stuff out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's, I just talked to Eric about this yesterday. For me, it's like, it's cool, but it's not, all the equipment's not that exciting because I get to see it all.
You
all
get
the
to
time.
see it all the time, man.
But I also recognize that somebody like you, you're in this region.
Yep.
You don't go see Pacific Northwest logging,
Exactly.
which is a totally different world. It's like,
Might learn something new. Might learn something from those guys.
dude, those guys, they throw down up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I with the perspective I have, it's like, well, that's not where everybody's coming from. Everybody's coming from their own little world, and they get to see what's out there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, man.
We'll just get back to it.
Appreciate it. Had fun.
Um,
Thanks for having me on.
are you guys on social media?
Yes, we are.
You're on there. I don't think I see you all that much though.
I'm on LinkedIn more than anything. Our business has a Instagram page. You can look at it up. It's Warren Land Solutions.
Okay.
So you can see some of our equipment on there. But LinkedIn's the biggest thing that I personally post on.
That's the most valuable place.
Yeah.
As a business owner.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.